you see this team, and they're talking about A.J. Brown still. It's an injury. We want him. Are we going to ship him? This situation has to play out in the sense of, I think he wants to be there, but at the end of the day, you can't disrupt the locker room every single week. And the Eagles need him to be there if they're going to make a Super Bowl run.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
The playoff matchups for Asher Genty are not great. We start to look ahead. I know it's early, but it's not that early. So Genty, I think, is still a better long-term guy than is maybe a redraft situation, especially with the schedule maps out. But I don't see a lot of games where he's potentially in a situation where the Raiders are ahead and running the football a ton, if you know what I mean. It's kind of tough out there for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Are they chanting? Is it over? Does he
They'll be
accept
gone
the
by
resignation?
halftime. No,
are they chanting fire?
Probably.
Kelly,
It would be warranted. It would be. I mean, you won a national championship in 2019. You're getting top 5, top 10 recruiting classes each and every year. You had the quarterback back to back to back to back. How many more chances are you going to get? I mean, really, what are we doing here?
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
One playoff win, and it's been a train wreck in every other year. But if we all agree that he was right in how he handicapped the quarterback talent coming out of that draft, and they got the right guy, and I think we all do agree on that, then what's the benefit of bringing a totally new voice into the room to now be the coach of Jackson Dart?
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Happy Friday. Welcome to another big weekend of football and the last weekend of the Major League Baseball season. That's right. World Series Game 6 coming up tonight. While you're trick-or-treating, maybe you can mix in some baseball, some college football as well. Bill Belichick's squad will be out there. We'll also recap the National Football League here on the show. Our friend Sam McQuillan will join us courtesy of Legal Sports Report. We'll dive into the very latest in sports betting. Also talk to Bill Bender. Of course, Bill of Sporting News previews the college football weekend. John Lafayette will also be around. He's the editor of The Measure, and we'll talk about this big story coming out of YouTube TV. We'll also check in with Mike Blewett, who's getting ready for his big NFL weekend here Sunday on SportsGrid. But let's get started with the big sports betting story of the day, and then we'll get to the big sports story of the day, which involves the Miami Dolphins. First, let's start off with Kalshi, the company that I'm sure you're familiar with if you watch this show or into sports betting at all. Kalshi, the prediction market company, has decided they will continue to operate contracts in the state of New York, even while a judge deliberates on an injunction and temporary restraining order in the prediction market company. If Kalshi wins this, they should be able to operate across the country. If they lose this, you can probably expect every other state in the United States to also process a temporary injunction. We'll see what happens with Kalshi down the line in the future. Also, the NCAA made a big announcement on Thursday. They're going to implement player availability reports for the upcoming NCAA tournament in men's and women's basketball. That's coming up soon. Teams will submit their availability reports to the NCAA the night before its games. And again, 2 hours before tip-off, similar to the NBA. So if you bet on college basketball, this will at least give you some insight as to who is in and who is out in college hoops coming up this upcoming season. Big news for YouTube TV. If you switched over to YouTube like many people have over the last couple of years, as of right now, you will not be able to watch college football tomorrow on ESPN. What is going on? Disney programming, including ESPN, ABC, and FX, were pulled from the YouTube TV platform as they have not settled on a new contract negotiation. How about that? YouTube TV says, despite its best efforts, it wasn't able to reach a fair deal. So those of you who have YouTube TV, you're going to head on over to the app or somewhere else to watch your college football tomorrow. Could this even extend to Monday Night Football? Who knows? Big news out of the NFL. The Miami Dolphins, of course, got crushed yesterday by the Baltimore Ravens, but the biggest story is today because they parted ways with their general manager, Chris Greer, who's been with the Dolphins since the year 2000. Yes, it's been that long. They mutually agreed to part ways. Make no mistake about it. This is because the Dolphins are one of the worst teams in the NFL, and that speaks to their effort last night. 28-6. Lamar Jackson, for the first time in a month, goes on a football field. It looks like he never missed any time. He threw 4 touchdown passes. Baltimore wins the game 28-6. Naturally, this was the Ravens show in Miami. Lamar threw 2 touchdown passes to Mark Andrews. That was a big part of their offense yesterday. Here is John Harbaugh on the return of LJ.
I said it's been a long journey, man. It's been a hard road, you know, and not just the 30 days, but even before that, you know. And I'm proud of him. I'm proud of the way he came out and played, you know, and proud of the way Tyler played last week. Both those 2 guys played well. I think T. Martin deserves a lot of credit. You know, he did a great job with those guys, and Monk and the offensive coaches. I thought the game plan. I thought what we've done with the offense the last 2 weeks has been really good, really excellent. So we got to keep building off that.
I just wanted to put points on the board. You know, I didn't want to start off too slow. You know, after that play happened, I was ready to go. It kind of tipped me off a little bit.
How much did your scramble, the first drive of the second half, and you kind of took off on that third down to pick it up? How much did that kind of help get you guys going, do you think? You know, I actually thought that was a lineman that was chasing me. That's why I wasn't really going. Then when I found out it was a linebacker, I'm like, I should have took off for real. But I feel like it helped out a little bit. You know, got us going, and I think we capitalized, scored another touchdown after. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mike McDaniel will be the coach of the Dolphins the rest of the season, according to ESPN, and then we'll see what happens after that. As far as last night's game is concerned, McDaniel, as he has been all season long, still looking for answers.
Disappointing, and unfortunately, we're going to have to sit on that disappointment for 10 days. I know the locker room would like to go play another Thursday night game in 4 days to get this bad taste out of their mouth, but these are the things that will constantly occur in the National Football League. You won't like the results if you have those major elements minus in the red zone and minus in turnovers. It's going to be a long day.
This isn't a game where we're discouraged. It's one of those games where you wish you could have done more or whatever you could to help the guys go out there and execute the way we wanted to execute offensively. I think the defense gave us a great opportunity, in the first half and then in the second half as well, with crucial third down stops, giving us the ball back, giving us an opportunity. And as I've said prior, those are times where we got to capitalize on those.
Meanwhile, the Arizona Cardinals look as though they will have their starting quarterback on Monday night. That's more of a fantasy football discussion and betting discussion, honestly. Murray missed the last 2 games because of a foot injury, so you can expect to potentially see him Monday. Puka Nacua also says he will play Sunday against the Saints. Cam Hayward of the Steelers speaking out, by the way, yesterday. They gave up 33 points in Week 7. Hayward says he challenged everybody on the defense to be better. We'll see if that helps the Steelers. As of now, they've been one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And also LSU and Scott Woodward, their athletic director, decided to part ways on Thursday. The governor of Louisiana said he wouldn't be making the decision on the next head coach, and the governor was right. Well, we were all wrong about the World Series. Nobody thought the Toronto Blue Jays would win this thing, but they are on the precipice of doing so, and they'll do it tonight as an underdog if they get it done. Yoshinobu Yamamoto starts for LA. They're minus 142 tonight in Toronto. The total is 7.5. George Springer is expected to play for the Blue Jays, who have been fantastic this postseason. So we'll see if they wrap it up tonight. If not, we got a Game 7 coming up on Saturday night. That should be exciting. All right, in the NBA last night, would you believe the San Antonio Spurs, with all those championships, with Duncan and Robinson and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, they were never 5-0 in the history of the NBA? Wow. Well, they are now. They beat the Heat last night 107-101. Favorite to win the MVP right now, Victor Wembanyama, 27 points, 18 rebounds, 6 steals, and 5 blocks. And they end up beating the Miami Heat. Eric Spoelstra, after the game, disappointed in the fourth quarter as a couple of possessions did not go their way.
Bottom line is, we were kind of uneven all night long, but there were 2 key possessions there going down the stretch where they got offensive rebounds, and then both those possessions end up in open threes. If we secure those rebounds, my experience tells me that the game would have felt a little bit different, those last 2 minutes. So regardless of how you get there, it's about making winning plays, going down the stretch. And there's those couple winning plays and, one or two other possessions we could have gotten stops with another rotation, another effort, and then you just grind it and you come away, with a win when you're not playing well.
All right, let's get now to the rest of the NBA. The Bucks beat the Warriors 120-110. Ryan Rollins was the story. 32 points on 5 of 7 free throws. Steph Curry's streak of 57 straight free throws came to an end. Here is Steve Kerr on the victory.
It looked to me like fatigue, mental, physical fatigue. It did not look like our team out there. Our spacing was bad. It just it didn't feel like we had our usual pop. And I thought Milwaukee was brilliant. I mean, they made 19 threes. They made one tough one after another down the stretch. But we let them hang around for too long, and that was the problem. And, it's what we talked about before the game. Anytime a team plays without its star, a team is going to be out there with nothing to lose, firing shots, a lot of guys getting extra minutes, feeling good. And I thought they did a fantastic job.
This is a guy we should be adding. And if you added him this week, you loved life because he was coming off not just a great Sunday last week when we were ahead of that curve, but also a great Thursday night football as well. So last week, 7 for 9 for 164 and a touchdown. This week on Thursday, 5 for 5, 77 and a touchdown. He didn't even play the first 2 weeks of the year, and he's already a top 10 tight end in scoring, if you can believe it.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Travis Hunter, Joe, is a part-time wide receiver. As I've told people from the moment he was drafted, there is zero chance long-term that they'll continue to do this in terms of playing offense and defense. They're going to have to pick a position with him. Brian Thomas, he was unbelievable. Talking to the Jaguars about him last season, he was so far ahead of schedule where they thought he'd be super smart. He had a wrist injury, by the way. We need to mention that, Joe, earlier this season.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
SMU is undefeated. You got Louisville that knocked off Miami. Yeah. Miami has one loss. There's multiple teams that potentially can make a run for an ACC championship. So their backs are still against the wall. Like Georgia Tech is not a shoo-in right now just because they're undefeated, because they still have to play Georgia at the end of the year as well. Even though it's out of conference, that can knock them out of the playoff.
SportsGrid's College Football Today. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where SportsGrid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Bill Bender is with us courtesy of Sporting News. And Bill is all psyched up for college football on a Friday night. Is that right, Bill? You're going to be watching college football tonight? You got the World Series, Bill. I mean, you got some good choices here, I think. But we do have a top 25 team facing off tonight. Memphis, 13.5-point favorites against Rice. The total 48.5 in this one. And fortunately, Bill is with us to break this down because this isn't one that I can. That's why we have Bill. I know that Memphis has given up some points and scored some points. So I'm wondering about this total here of 48.5. Is this low, or is Rice just going to lose 31-0 or something here?
I think they'll go over the total. And Craig, I do have 2 TVs in the living room this time of year. We make sure we'll have the World Series on one and then Rice Memphis on the other. I'm not going to tell you which one's going to be on the big TV, but both of these teams average over 200 rushing yards per game. So that tells me that they will get up and down a little bit. Rice is covered 3 times as a double-digit underdog, but they've been blown out twice. So I kind of like Memphis to pull away in the second half in a high-scoring game, and the Tigers will be on track in the American Conference to maybe get that be the highest-ranked Group of 5 team in the playoff rankings next week.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, will a team from the American reach the college football playoff as of right now, Bill? It looks like a long shot. You know who I thought was really strongly in the mix was South Florida, right? South Florida, they had that big win at the beginning of the season, and they finally lost. So as we take a look at the odds here, USF is plus 350. I don't see Tulane getting in. So, South Florida has the best quality win, I think, on their schedule, and no one else is getting in, correct?
Well, I do think the American Conference champion will get in, depending on what happens out west with UNLV and Boise. One of these teams has to get in the playoff. Navy's worth watching this week against North Texas. So if they beat North Texas, I don't think anybody in the world's going to pick Navy to beat Notre Dame next week. But Blake Horvath, one of the best quarterbacks for his team in the country, is a super valuable. He's throwing the ball down the field a little bit more. So keep an eye on the midshipmen. They've got to beat North Texas this week. That American Conference race is a little bit of a mess.
All right, so now let's get to the Southeastern Conference, Bill, and I know that this is the marquee game of the week. And by the way, I've looked at, what happened was this week I looked at the schedule. I saw this is the marquee game, and I thought to myself, we can do better than this. But the rest of the season is really good the rest of the way. Like, we got big games coming up, so this is it. Okay, so what do you make of Oklahoma at this point? I know who Tennessee is, Bill. Tennessee is going to score 3 or 4 touchdowns. They're going to give up 2 or 3 touchdowns. But Oklahoma is seemingly a disappointment in college football this season. Let's remember, they were ranked inside the top 10, and then John Mateer got hurt. He came back. He doesn't look like the same guy. This is a get-right game, I would assume, for him, because Tennessee's D will give up some points, and the total is 55.5. I think the winner of this team is right in the mix for the college football playoff, and as we've talked about last week, Bill, the loser probably is not going to be in this year.
Yeah, elimination game by definition. I think Tennessee, you look at them and an opportunity here at home. They are 16-2 at home the last 3 seasons, and the only 2 losses are to Georgia. So I do like the Vols in this spot. And to your point, Oklahoma, since that John Mateer injury, it's kind of unraveled on them a little bit. And one thing, we could be in a scenario on Saturday night where Oklahoma has a 3rd loss, Nebraska has a 3rd loss, Texas has a 3rd loss, and you know what you could make a joke out of that and say, why aren't they still in the Big 12? They would have a better chance of making the playoff in that conference at that point. Now, one thing to keep in mind with Oklahoma, they allow 12.5 points per game, but that number balloons up to 28.5 in SEC play. So give me the Vols here. I think the Vols cover at home and pull out another win and knock Oklahoma out of the playoff race.
Yeah, that probably is it. I think you and I agree with that, Bill. I don't see Texas as formidable. It's been a really disappointing season for them. Finally, Arch Manning had his great game, but then got banged up. So this week it is Texas minus 2.5 in the early game in the SEC on Saturday against Vanderbilt, having the storybook type season. They're getting 2.5 points here, Bill. Some people feel like they should be the favorite. We talked earlier in the week, maybe this line flips and Vandy is at least a pick'em or a favorite, but that has not been the case. The reason why, Texas's defense shows up every week, but still questions on the offense, I would guess, going into the season, although Manning does look like he's on track to play.
Yeah, and that the line is stuck since we talked earlier in the week, which is a little bit of a surprise to me. If Vanderbilt's going to win this game, Diego Pavia is going to have to do it with his arm. Texas has the 3rd best rush defense in the country, and their defense keeps them in every game. So I'm looking for the Longhorns here. I don't feel great about it, but I think Texas is going to win. I think their run defense is going to cause just enough problems. Am I off in thinking that? I do think it's going to be a close game.
Yeah, I kind of like Vanderbilt a little bit. I like this like storybook type season for them. All right, Matt Rule signs a 2-year contract extension. This is probably not his season, but a lot of people feel that next year Nebraska could be formidable. USC is the better team this year. They're laying 5.5 points total. of 58.5. Does that summarize it here? I do think USC's got a great shot, but maybe is there a boost for the rule contract factor here?
Both. What's going to give? Nebraska's lost 28 straight games against ranked opponents. Is this the time when they finally get that big win? At home, like you said, a little bit of a boost because Matt Rule believes in it and is staying there. USC in these 2 time zone games in the Big Ten since joining the Big Ten, 1-4 straight up, 0-5 against the spread. So is this their time to go get a big win? The winner will still have some playoff hopes. The loser will be out. Again, this is another one I don't feel great about, Craig, but I'm taking USC. I think they have the better offense. They have the offense that averages the most yards per game in all of the FBS. Lincoln Riley finally gets a road win, but it's a tight game in the first half.
Finally, let me get to James Franklin real quick, Bill. There's some published reports that say that he could be the front runner for the Virginia Tech job. I'm okay with that, Bill. I'm a little surprised that it's not a bigger job. No disrespect to Virginia Tech at all, because it's a good job. I mean, Frank Beamer made it a great job many years ago, but what do you make of this rumor?
Like you, I thought he would be a candidate for a much larger job, but he'll fit there and he'll turn them around and he'll recruit well. He'll win games. He's been tied to that region. Trace McSorley was from around there. So I like the fit. If James Franklin goes there, I think he'll get them turned around.
Bill, have a great weekend. Thanks for coming on NewsWire.
Hey, thank you.
We'll be right back.
This is a guy we should be adding. And if you added him this week, you loved life because he was coming off not just a great Sunday last week when we were ahead of that curve, but also a great Thursday night football as well. So last week, 7 for 9 for 164 and a touchdown. This week on Thursday, 5 for 5, 77 and a touchdown. He didn't even play the first 2 weeks of the year, and he's already a top 10 tight end in scoring, if you can believe it.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Travis Hunter, Joe, is a part-time wide receiver. As I've told people from the moment he was drafted, there's zero chance long-term that they'll continue to do this in terms of playing offense and defense. They're going to have to pick a position with him. Brian Thomas, he was unbelievable. Talking to the Jaguars about him last season, he was so far ahead of schedule where they thought he'd be super smart. He had a wrist injury, by the way. We need to mention that, Joe, earlier this season.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
SMU is undefeated. You got Louisville that knocked off Miami. Yeah. Miami has one loss. There's multiple teams that potentially can make a run for an ACC championship. So their backs are still against the wall. Like Georgia Tech is not a shoo-in right now just because they're undefeated, because they still have to play Georgia at the end of the year as well. Even though it's out of conference, that can knock them out of the playoff.
SportsGrid's College Football Today. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where SportsGrid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We've got a World Series Game 6 tonight in Toronto. Tickets are almost $2,000 a piece. It's going to be a wild one to see if the Blue Jays can end up clinching it tonight. Let's hear from the manager, John Schneider, and also the manager of the LA Dodgers, Dave Roberts, in the SportsGrid Sound-Off. All right, so here we are. Game 6 tonight. Dodgers, Blue Jays. Dodgers were heavy favorites to win the World Series, even from the beginning of the season. And then when they got into the postseason, it looked like more of the same. They were just steamrolling teams, but certainly things have completely changed. The Blue Jays are now favored to win. Well, yesterday, both teams arrived back in Canada, and on an off day, what generally happens is the two teams have separate workouts on the day that they don't play the World Series. So we did get an opportunity to hear from some of the people that are involved, albeit a little bit limited as far as media is concerned. First, let's go to John Schneider, who is certainly living the dream, talking vibes for the Blue Jays after getting ready for this, what could be deciding Game 6 of the World Series tonight.
Yeah, the vibe was exactly how it always is coming home with an off day. You know what I mean? It's, again, I was impressed, you know, kind of walking through the clubhouse after I get done talking to you guys. There's obviously just more people in the clubhouse than a regular season, but I was impressed with just kind of the back and forth that was happening and the not getting too high and kind of getting ready to get on a bus and get on a plane and come back here and get ready to play. So the vibe was good, but it was nothing different than what it has been this season. I actually texted my wife and she said, "Hey, how are you doing? And are you having fun?" And I said, "I'm actually kind of calm," which is weird. You know what I mean? It's just after 3 days like that in an 18-inning game, I felt pretty calm. It was just like, all right, put on your headphones, watch a movie, have a beer, and kind of just chill. So it was a normal plane ride.
What did you watch?
What did I watch yesterday? I go back and forth. Yesterday was Den of Thieves. A good bank robber movie from LA. So that was kind of in the queue.
Movie day yesterday for the Toronto Blue Jays. All right, now let's go to the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's a spot that they've been before, playing in a World Series with an opportunity still to get to a Game 7. They got the guy that they want on the mound tonight, okay, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and LA is big favorites tonight. Let's get to Dave Roberts here on the day off. He shared his thoughts on LA and what they kind of feel going into Game 6, and it doesn't seem like there's at least any panic for now.
Natural.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I'm in good spirits. Our coaches are. What better way to win the World Series in Game 7? But we got to win tomorrow. And the thing that's encouraging for me is I know I gave our players an option to not work out today because of the long series and 18 innings and travel and all that stuff, and not one guy took the option. So that was pretty exciting for me and just speaks to where these guys are at, that they realize that the job's not done, and we're going to keep going and keep fighting.
In the back row.
Hey, Dave, you touched on mindset a little bit, so I was wondering, what do you think the right way to approach a back against the wall situation is? Do you need to have that little extra fight with the season on the line, or do you want to keep it not too high, not too low, play the same game as always?
I think elimination games, which we've had a lot of experience with, is all mindset. I really do. It's fight or flight. It's whatever adage or saying you want to kind of come, leave it all out there. It's certainly not war. I'm not trying to compare that to war, but in our world, in our small world of baseball, it is war, and so that's the mindset. For me, it's all mindset.
I think the Dodgers right now are still in a good spot. If they can get this win tonight, I don't want to sound like Magic Johnson, but it does feel like if they can get through this one and then get to a Game 7, obviously they're going to be favored in that one as well. But I guess the question would be, would Trey Savage come into a Game 7 situation and end up pitching in this? I don't know. But tonight's game, the total is 7.5. As I mentioned, LA is a minus 142 favorite on the money line. If you take the Jays, it's plus 120. Also some good options over on FanDuel for this to go to a Game 7, not to mention all the props and everything else involved. By the way, our top story of the day, in case you're just joining us, those of you who have made that switch, and I'm guessing a lot of you have because you're streaming our show somewhere, YouTube TV has dropped ESPN and all the Disney channels, including ABC. So that would mean no college football on the air tomorrow on ESPN and all of their channels, and on YouTube TV as well. We'll see if this carriage dispute ends up getting solved by tomorrow, but if not, also puts Monday Night Football in question as well. Sam McQuillan will join us from Legal Sports Report right after this.
You just see Texas in any game, and again, Kentucky used to be able to put up points in the past. 43.5 is crazy because it just feels like Texas is going to come in, play really good defense, and try to squeeze this game out. It'll be interesting to see because nothing got ailed from that victory last week. Texas is back. I'm just being facetious at this point. But if we see one of those performances 17-14 Texas.
In the fourth quarter.
Yeah, come on.
Right? I mean, really. I mean, they got a gift last week.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It looks like the Bengals fantasy pieces are back. What did you make of that Joe Flacco performance on Thursday night? Turning back time.
Yeah, it was great for a guy like me with gray in the beard. I love seeing it. I love my representation. But at the end of the day, just from a wagering standpoint, if this continues, it'll give some consistency and it'll give some value back to those tools that you were mentioning on the Bengals.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Defense is above average this year. And I think big picture, they're going to be probably the most consistent moving forward. The problem I have is this guy, Trevor Lawrence, big picture. You got to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the ugly sometimes is real ugly. He is not comfortable in the pocket on a consistent basis, and that's a problem.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid. It starts innocent. One bet, one boost, one thrill. You're not haunted by ghosts. You're haunted by doubt. But that's where SportsGrid brings the light when the lines get dark. The only thing scarier than losing a bet is missing a winner. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Sam McQuillan is with us from Legal Sports Report here on this Friday to dive into some of the latest controversies in sports betting. Man, it's been a busy week for controversies. All right, Sam, so let's get started here. The NBA had its big scandal. Hopefully this is the end of those, although still TBD, of course. These are humans. This is sports, and there's money involved. But a U.S. congressman is getting involved here. And if Congress starts getting involved and watchdogging a little bit more of the sports betting, that means these professional leagues are going to have to be on notice more than they want to be, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that's always been a theme, not just in sports betting, but sports in general. The sentiment has always been Congress telling sports leagues, listen, you don't want us to police you because we're going to come in and put serious guardrails that you don't want to do. You should be taking care of the stuff yourself. It was the same with NIL, I think, which the NCAA had to deal with in its own way. And it's been kind of the same with sports betting now, where when there are national scandals and when, the international news is picking up this kind of stuff, Congress kind of turns their head and is like, all right, well, it doesn't seem like you have it figured out, even though maybe you're telling us the system is working like it's supposed to. You had Congressman Paul Tonko this week write 7 letters to different Major League Sports commissioners, essentially telling them you need to get behind this bill that I have called the SAFE Act, which has wide sweeping, protections and rules and restrictions for sports books and sports betting. A lot of things that the leagues and the sports books themselves probably wouldn't love to adopt, but he's telling them you guys have to support this bill and get behind these guardrails, or next time that the scandal drops, it's really on you and it's your fault because you didn't embrace this stuff. Now, this is the SAFE Act bill, which he reintroduced earlier this year in March. He's actually been pushing this bill for several years, and it would do sweeping things like preventing sports betting ads during live games. That's, at arenas, that's on TV. It would prevent programming themselves from pushing bonus bets. So, if you watch any of the, pre-game, pre-show, or even mid-game sports programs, they're always talking about some sort of bonus offer or odds boost, something like that. And even more importantly for the industry, which is a real concern, is banning the use of artificial intelligence to tailor bets that customers get based off their betting habits and to create and introduce new types of bets. So AI has been a huge driver of sports books kind of updating their tech and really becoming more efficient and squeezing more profitability out of their customers. The American Gaming Association has already come out several times and said that this is really something they don't want. So I think this is a case of where if you have this stuff come to light with these betting scandals and more, bad news, so to speak, the pressure kind of to not have these things becomes even harder to face from a public perspective. And in Tonko's case, I think he's kind of taking advantage of, there are these huge scandals. I've wanted this bill passed for a long time. Maybe now I can curry public support. And that's why he wrote these letters to the commissioners, basically telling them next time something like this happens, you take all the blame unless you get on board with what I want.
Well, we'll see if Congress decides to jump more in. I'm still more curious how they're going to treat prediction markets, at least for the time being. But I guess they got both stories to deal with. They got to pick one. All right, let's deal with this next story here. The NCAA is adding some availability reports to college basketball, Sam. This will be crucial, of course, not just for the regular season, but also the NCAA tournament. And it does make more sense as, sports betting becomes more prevalent. The NCAA tournament outside of the NFL is the most bet on event each and every year. And so incoming for that, similar to the NBA, check in the night before, check in the day of the game, give you a better idea as to who's in and who's out.
Yeah, this move is kind of the first movement towards bringing the NCAA more in line with what professional sports like the NFL and NBA do, where they have these mandatory injury reports that drop at a certain time every day that, say whether a player is going to play, whether they're questionable or not. And that's regarded as the public information. That's when the lines typically move. If there is a huge line movement kind of before that information drops, it kind of sets off red flags that maybe somebody got insider information that, we didn't know about publicly. And then you can, track it down like they did with the NBA betting scandals. You had inside info on player health. The line moved tremendously on one of the Lakers-Bucks games. And then, because that wasn't public info, they were able to track it. The NCAA has never had that mandatory. They're moved this week announcing that they're going to have this being mandatory for March Madness just to begin with. That's the men's and women's college basketball tournaments for Division I, where you're going to have to list if a player is questionable or out before the game. It comes obviously in the wake of all these betting scandals and the tremendous pressure. I think it's just another move that the NCAA is trying to do to, not only safeguard game integrity, but also, help college athletes kind of fight harassment. We know college athletes really get harassed a lot when it comes to these kind of things. Player props have been a huge increased focus for college sports as well. The NCAA president has been lobbying every state to ban player props on college athletes because it kind of, he says, induces them, to maybe throw a game or manipulate their performance a little differently. So it's starting off with March Madness. The NCAA says they're going to, monitor and see how it works in March Madness and potentially expand it to other college tournaments after that. Last year, actually, the SEC and Big Ten were the first conferences to move for the mandatory injury reporting, which they've been doing for football. So it's slowly starting to spread in college athletics. And I think the more that you obviously see public pressure put on them by congressmen, by whoever, they're going to start to do more moves like this. And I think it's a good thing overall to have, more of this mandatory reporting and a uniform thing, especially when you talk about college sports being a lot different than it was back in the days of amateurism. These are high profile people who are easily accessible on social media, people who make lots of money themselves. So I think it's a good thing. I'd love to see the NCAA expand it to other sports, but that's going to come after March Madness. That'll be kind of their pilot program, at least according to the NCAA.
Well, starting off is definitely good with this, and I'm curious to see how it works, as you mentioned, for the tournament, because every once in a while there's like a key injury going into this. Now we'll get a little bit more insight right before it begins. Okay, insight now to sportsbooks, Sam, for the NFL season. Now, I don't have all the data here, you do, so I didn't really, dive too far into it. So here's what I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess that the books are having a better season than they had last year, but still overall another shockingly losing season for them. At least from what I see in the results, that's my assessment. I still think it's not going well for them because, again, the favorites are winning, but I think we have seen a little bit more deviation. Last year was just across the board, like out of 18 weeks, 17 weeks, you had favorites winning 15 of the 17.
Yeah, well, you're spot on with that assessment, Craig. When you talk about how historically bad last year was, you cannot, over-explain how bad it was. You cannot overstate how bad last year was. In turn, this year has been better, but it's still not great. You had favorites of a touchdown or more They went 16-2-1 straight up in the month of September, which was their best start in nearly 50 years. And obviously, we know the public likes to back favorites, especially when you have these money line parlays where you're able to put a bunch of different favorites for a lower price and a return for a bigger bet. And that's really been hurting sports books, at least Caesars, which came out this week and said that their sports betting profits from online were down about 50% from a year ago in the third quarter. That's because, September is that 1 month of NFL that's fit in. You had favorites win at that historic rate. Yet again, you had 60% of primetime games going over. We know the public obviously loves to bet on overs. And you had some really high profile games like the Monday Night Football game between the Bills and the Ravens that went into overtime. That was the worst single game result in DraftKings history. They came out and said that last month. So it's no surprise that the results so far financially are hurting a little bit. But analysts and the stock market so far is bullish on it returning to normal eventually. We've seen it kind of move back more towards where it should be. They want to see that momentum going. In the meantime, betting handle is up, so people are betting more. The market is getting bigger. The sports books are now saying it's just a matter of time before we come out on the right side of the bets. And again, that's why they're the sports books. That's why they're the house. They can weather this kind of thing in theory. We'll see how it goes in October, obviously, when we get those results, and then eventually November. They'll be hoping for a turnaround.
All right, Sam, great stuff as always. Thanks for appearing all week. We'll catch up next week here on NewsWire. Thanks again.
Thanks, you too, Craig.
We'll be back with John Lafayette from The Measure after this.
There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is a bad moment for women's sports because there was a lot riding on this. It's a great idea. Toyota had been signed up as a sponsor for what was going to be last night's coverage, and SI is really in a bad pickle. They have got to come clean and find out why, after 7 months of trying to put this together, they couldn't get the job done, and when they're going to have these games rescheduled.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's a university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Big news today for those of you who subscribe to YouTube TV. As of right now, ESPN is off YouTube TV as well as all the other Disney channels, which means college football's viewership could be in peril tonight, could be in peril tomorrow. And then, of course, the NFL has a game Monday night, which I'm sure a lot of people would love to watch. Let's bring in John Lafayette. He's an editor of The Measure. We'll dive into the latest and also talk some World Series odds as well. John, thanks for coming on the show. So what's going on here? Is this just a simple carriage dispute, or is there more to this story?
Yeah, well, these things used to happen all the time with cable, especially during football season, and now it's starting to happen with these streaming guys, and it's just as annoying to sports fans. Basically, it's about money is the main thing. Disney wants more from YouTube, and YouTube wants to pay less. It's also a little bit about how Disney's streaming services are sold. Disney's been bundling their streaming services with ABC and ESPN with cable guys. YouTube wants to be able to sell the Disney streaming services separately through its own little store. Now, it's a big deal because YouTube now has about 10 million subscribers, and that's a big number. They pay about $80 a month, and they've said that as long as this dispute goes on, they're going to refund their customers $20 a month. Now, YouTube had a similar fight with Fox in August, and they had a fight with NBC in September, and those got settled. Now, if you're a YouTube subscriber, it's pretty easy to get ESPN in other ways without going back to cable. Disney itself owns Hulu and Fubo, which are subscriber services that you can sign up for pretty easily. You can sign out of YouTube TV. You can sign into these guys. It's about the same price. ESPN also, if you remember, launched their own streaming service, and that's about $30 a month. So, there's a lot of ways, if you really want to do it, to get your ESPN fix from streaming. Now, if you look at it from a financial point of view, from a business point of view, I think Disney has more to lose. They are very dependent on the subscriber revenues from those 10 million YouTube subscribers. The good news for them is that they have leverage. Like you said, they got college football, you got basketball, you got hockey, you got the NFL. This is a good time to put pressure on YouTube if they want to hold on to subscribers. But YouTube's got a lot of businesses where they make a lot of money, and YouTube TV, frankly, isn't really one of them. It's probably just barely profitable, so they can afford to sit tight, and their stockholders won't really care if YouTube TV has a million, 2 million less subscribers in for a couple of months. So there, it's going to be a standoff, and we'll see how long it takes. Like you mentioned, ABC's got big college football games this weekend. So if you're a college football fan and you want to see Vanderbilt or Texas or Georgia play Florida or Tennessee play Oklahoma, you're going to have to figure out a way to do that. And you could do it with an antenna. You can do it with an alternative streaming system. It's all up to you. But either way, it's something that most people don't want to deal with.
Yeah, and a lot of reports are simply stating at this point that ESPN is holding firm because they want more people streaming on their app and maybe trying to eliminate YouTube altogether. We'll see if that indeed is the case. All right, World Series ratings, 18-inning games. Certainly a lot of folks in Canada watching because of the Blue Jays, John. A lot of folks in Japan watching because of Shohei Ohtani. What do the viewership numbers look like?
Well, it's interesting because we've got this situation now where all of the major sports are in play. So you had baseball usually tries to do a pretty good job of trying to stay away from the NFL, but Monday night when they had that big game, weren't able to do that. So that Monday night, the Chiefs played the Washington Commanders, and that game averaged 17.6 million viewers, and that's a lot of sports fans, right? So with those guys out of play, the game on Fox with the baseball game started with about 8 million viewers. It wound up averaging about 11.4 million viewers, which isn't as good as the NFL does, but it peaked at about, it's interesting because it peaked at about 13 million viewers when the NFL signed off. Interestingly enough, when the game ended, there were still 8 million viewers, and that was a little bit more than started out the game. Now in Canada, this is a really big deal. They got 5.8 million viewers watching on Sportsnet there, and they got a French language channel that's getting about 400,000 viewers. So that's a total of about 17.6 million viewers, and that's up 27% from a year ago if you look at it on both the U.S. and Canada. So that's sort of fun to watch the viewing go up and down and up and down. And in LA, they had about 66%. If you were awake and watching TV at 11:45 at night in Los Angeles, 66% of the people were watching that baseball game, and if they were awake, they saw the home run. So that's sort of interesting. Now, over the course of 5 games in this World Series, we're averaging about 19 million viewers in the U.S. and Canada, and that's up 23%. And it's down a little bit in the United States. But the other day when Fox had their earnings call, Lachlan Murdoch said that they expected ad revenues for the World Series to surpass last year's. Now, last year, if you remember, it was a sweep, and that hurts when it comes to ad revenue. Less games, less revenue. This year, we're going to get 6 games, maybe 7 games, and Fox is selling those commercials for about $300,000 for 30 seconds. Now, it's sort of neat when you have an 18-inning game. You can show an awful lot of commercials over 18 innings. In fact, Fox could only show paid commercials through 13 innings. They ran out of commercials. They ran out of sponsors. They showed promos through the rest of that game. So, we were talking about last year was about $177 million in ad sales during the World Series. So, baseball has been very, very good for Fox and will continue to do so.
All right, John, let's end real quick with the WNBA. I know they're looking toward a new CBA. Will they get that done?
Well, the strike was supposed to start today, but there's been an extension. So it'll be another 30 days. They'll be able to negotiate and try to see what will happen in terms of, especially in terms of player salaries. Players say, you guys got a rich new TV deal. We want more money. The owners want to hold the line and keep the salary cap in place. So we'll see what happens in terms of players getting paid.
All right, John, have a good weekend. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure. Happy Halloween.
We'll be right back.
There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is a bad moment for women's sports because there was a lot riding on this. It's a great idea. Toyota had been signed up as a sponsor for what was going to be last night's coverage, and SI is really in a bad pickle. They have got to come clean and find out why, after 7 months of trying to put this together, they couldn't get the job done, and when they're going to have these games rescheduled.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's the university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circa Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's check in with our friends at Front Office Sports. Angel Reese, always a hot topic of discussion in the WNBA. This go around, Front Office Sports dives into why Angel Reese had a trademark of her own name.
Meanwhile, as the CBA deadline between the WNBA and players ticks down on Friday, you see players now like Angel Reese flexing their off-court portfolio, trademarking their own name. So let's bring in women's sports reporter Annie Constable for more. So why is Angel Reese filing a trademark on her own name, and how would this actually work?
I mean, in simple terms, Angel Reese is big business. We all know this. And when it comes to trademarking your own name, this really allows for her to have final say, final approval on the way her name, image, and likeness is used when it comes to marketing and selling goods. As far as the First Amendment goes, we know that, I mean, that's still...
Right, for now.
In lockstep here in America, still an amendment, still a law. So the league can use her name. Her name can be used, but it's more so when it comes to marketing and selling goods.
So like you and I mentioning her name right now, or even Ryan Russillo on the broadcast, you can still do that?
Fair game.
Okay.
As long as the First Amendment is in play, we can say and use her name.
So given the fact that, you know, this comes a couple weeks after WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert was accused by Nafisa Collier of saying players like Caitlin Clark or others are using the platform that the WNBA provided them to get these endorsement deals, is this almost sort of a flex by these players to sort of say, not really?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this goes back to college, really, for players like Angel Reese, because she's been building her brand since college. And we know, based on these trademarks, based on Me-Bounds earlier this summer, that was a six-figure brand, you know, idea that came about from trolling online. And she flipped that and turned that into, again, a six-figure brand deal, brand in itself. And that speaks to her power and her influence in the business space. And beyond that, when you're talking about another player like Paige Beckers, who it was just announced that she's going to be in an Apple TV movie, I mean, this, again, enforces the opposite of what Kathy was accused of saying to Nafisa Collier in terms of these players needing the league. It's really quite the opposite when you see things like Angel Reese trademarking her name, like Paige being announced in this movie. We exist beyond the WNBA.
Big injuries in the NFL, always an issue. Let's check in with our very own expert on injuries. It's Dr. David Chow. He's got a Week 9 preview.
Return of the quarterback. Lamar's back. I'm not sure that he feels completely comfortable. I'm not saying it's the hamstring where he's injured. I think he's good on the hamstring. It's just rust, it looks like. But let's go through it. Lamar's back already. Is he 100% or not? I guess that's up to question. I think physically he's fine. I think there's some rust that he needs to shake off. J.J. McCarthy is going to play. That makes 2. He has to. A, he's ready to go. B, Carson Wentz is down. Michael Penix's bone bruise is different than Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is returning this week, but Michael Penix looks like he's going to go. Bryce Young, this, quote, low high ankle sprain. Bottom line is it's not bad. He's ready to go, I believe. Jaden Daniels is hamstring, and he looks ready to go, and not Marcus Mariota this week. Oh, and Andy Dalton, Bryce Young, Andy Dalton broke his thumb, apparently, so it's definitely Bryce Young. There's 5. Who am I forgetting? Help me out here. There's Kyler Murray, 6, who is looking like he's going to play with his foot sprain. He's technically limited, but looks like he's going to play. The iffiest one might be Brock Purdy with the turf toe, limited still. But I think this is the first week Brock Purdy has a real chance to play. And then there's Joe Flacco with the AC joint, throwing shoulder. We talked about it Sunday. I think he did that. He went in the locker room, got x-rays, got it shot up, and returned. They didn't win the game against the Jets. But it really is this. He was limited today. Would they rather have a Joe Flacco, who's new to the Bengals team, not practicing much, take an injection and play, or Jake Browning, who has more of the playbook, who is practicing and more 100%? That will be a coaching decision. I think Flacco talks his way in there, is my impression. So that's the quarterback rundown. Terry McLaurin, when you have a setback, it's not good. Look at Brock Purdy. He hurt it week 1, missed week 2, came back week 3, had a setback. He's been out now through week 8. Now it's week 9. Terry McLaurin with the proximal quad hip flexor, tough.
There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is a bad moment for women's sports because there was a lot riding on this. It's a great idea. Toyota had been signed up as a sponsor for what was going to be last night's coverage, and SI is really in a bad pickle. They have got to come clean and find out why, after 7 months of trying to put this together, they couldn't get the job done, and when they're going to have these games rescheduled.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's a university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's bring in Mike Blewett. He's getting ready for his Sunday show, In-Game Live, covering the National Football League for us here at SportsGrid. Before we look forward, let's take a look back at last night. Cost a general manager his job as well, Mike. Thanks for coming on. Chris Greer, who's been with the team for over 20 years, back to the days that Bill Parcells was around. Yeah, I mean, it goes that far back. Not a lot of playoff appearances, not a lot of success. But, Mike, what we did see last night were the brown bags on the heads of the fans. I think that just set the owner off, to be honest with you. 28-7. Ravens come to town. Lamar Jackson didn't show any rust at all through 4 touchdowns, 200 yards. Didn't even need him to play, basically, in the fourth quarter. But the story isn't the Ravens today. It's the Dolphins. And 2-7 start, Mike, and going nowhere fast. It felt like this was inevitable.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. To your point about the Ravens, I think it's a good performance for them, right? Very efficient from Lamar. It didn't have to be eye-popping. They got Derrick Henry over 100 yards. And to your point about the fourth quarter, there wasn't really much to it. It was mostly running the ball out, the clock out. I'm sure they'll get sharper in the weeks ahead, but a great situation for them to get an easy win on the road on a Thursday night. In terms of the Dolphins, you and I have sort of talked about this on this show, and I know you've talked about it plenty, is this roster has slowly disintegrated really over the last few years. Yeah. So there is a lot of vitriol, I think, at times towards Mike McDaniel. But I would say, if I'm being totally fair, this roster is definitely worse than the one that he had 2 years ago. I just don't really see how there's even an argument. It started with Christian Wilkins walking in free agency, and there's been a slow march towards them losing players. The offensive line is worse. Ron Armstead retires, and there's all these pieces along the way that you start looking at it. And yeah, they extend Zach Seiler and they draft Kenneth Grant, and we'll see what they have in some of these young players. But the talent on defense is worse. The offensive line is worse. They don't have Tyreek Hill, and they expect Tua to make up for it. Mike McDaniel is a creative play caller, and that doesn't necessarily make him a good offensive coordinator or a good head coach. But this roster is worse, and Chris Greer ultimately paid the price. McDaniel may very well pay the price in the long term. They're keeping him for now. They're tiptoeing around that, obviously, I guess, to see if he can provide any spark
in these last 8 games, but I don't anticipate it. They're a pretty bad team.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, let's take a look at the AFC North real quick here. We have the Steelers at 4-3, plus 200. I was wondering how the Ravens were going to be a favorite. I was like, this is crazy. I was wrong. They're 3-5. They're right there. They play the Steelers twice, and they're minus 145 now to win the division. They've got some very big matchups coming up there, no doubt about that. All right, let's preview some games this weekend. You'll have your eye, Mike, on the Steelers. Can they get this going against the Colts? Colts are like a juggernaut all of a sudden in the NFL. Colts are slight favorites, total of 50.5. I know the Steelers generally have performed fairly well as dogs under Tomlin through the years. -3 is the number here. Just can't find a lot of support for Pittsburgh right now.
It's hard when the defense is playing as bad as it has. And heck, Greg, going into halftime on Sunday night, my fandom was peaking. I was like, all right, that was a pretty good first half. I didn't think we'd punch the ball into the end zone there. It kept the Packers off the scoreboard. It's 16-7. You're feeling good. And the second half was a total disaster defensively. The Packers were able to control the ball the whole way. They ran and certainly passed the ball at will. Nobody could cover Tucker Kraft a week after. Nobody could cover Jamar Chase. So they have major coverage issues. They've made some trades here. They made a trade to replace Deshaun Elliott, who may be very well out for the season, and getting Kyle Duggar from the Patriots. But does Kyle Duggar make this a transformative move? Certainly not. I think you're going to have to look for them to get stops. You are right. They do perform well as dogs, particularly at home, but they need to get stops. You said the total is 50.5. That is completely off from where Steelers totals have been for the last 2 years. We usually see a 3 in front of that, and definitely not a 5. Right. They're going to have to find a way to slow the Colts down. The reality is the Steelers have to run the ball. They can't be relying on explosive plays so often. They were doing a good job running the ball and abandoned it. So they're going to have to get back to that if, I can't believe I'm about to say this, just to keep Daniel Jones off the field.
Yeah, no. I mean, and Daniel Jones is going to be on that field with Jonathan Taylor running up and down if the Steelers don't stop him. Broncos and Houston Texans. Now, here's an under team. Houston. It feels like they go under every week. I think I like the under again this week. Total of 40.5. Denver busted out offensively last week against Dallas. Does that even count? I'm not sure. Houston's a slight favorite in this game. To me, this is an extremely tough game to call. I think both teams are just about even in terms of record, in terms of success. Don't love what I've seen from Denver outside of last week. And I know that they had a great fourth quarter against the Giants, and Houston's just playing this ball control type offense that's going to put them in the playoffs on a Saturday at 4:00. You know that's coming. But I like the under here.
That's the Texans window. It's what they do.
It is. It's going to be, that's what it's going to be. Houston 100%. Is going to be on the road Saturday at the Chargers at 4:30 to start the playoffs.
Yeah, they might host the Chargers, and you should pencil it in right now. So they'll win it. They could even win the division if they chase down the Colts. Yeah. But you're right. This is, and at the risk of being hyperbolic, this is one of the toughest games of the entire year, I think, going in to really try to get a sense of what it is. That Niners-Texans game, I thought that was a pretty hard under game, and they got it right on the number, 41, when it was 40.5, 41.5 for most of the week. This one, again, expecting lower scoring at 40.5. I'm actually leaning the Texans here. I like the Broncos a lot. I'm bullish on them this year, but without Pat Surtain there, I do think it hurts the manner in which they've been able to get to the quarterback. Surtain has an incredible impact on the way that they play defense, and without him, it's like playing with one arm tied behind their back. I still think they can be effective, but I'm going to take the Texans here. In terms of a total, I really think it could go either way, Craig. I would lean towards the under, but I'm going to stick with the Texans here. I like them to beat the Broncos and get a huge win.
Finally, best team in the NFL at home, Detroit. Boy, I am scared if I'm a Vikings fan. You got your quarterback back in McCarthy. I'm not even sure what to expect. Lions aren't even laying double digits here. Oof, I hate laying points. I think I would do it here, Mike. Total 48.5. If Detroit goes up 17-3, how do the Vikings even stay in this game in Detroit?
I hear you. You know, I like to bet team totals as well. This one's under 30 at 29.5. I don't think it's going to get any lower than that. I think the Lions do get to 30 points, and I think they do it in the first half as well. That's 14.5 right now. You can bet an alt if you want at 13.5. It worked with the Ravens last night, certainly splitting up the halves, and I think it works here for the Lions as well. I think they get off to a good start, and if McCarthy, to your point, is stalling on offense, giving the Lions more possessions with good field position is a recipe for a disaster. I don't know how the Vikings keep it close. Hopefully McCarthy plays like he did in that one half early in the season.
Mike, let's do this. Let's take a quick time out here. We'll come back. We'll preview more games. Can you stick around for a little bit more?
Of course. Yeah.
All right, Mike Blewett here with us. Let's take a short time out, as I mentioned, here on Newswire. When we come back next, we will preview 3 games against the spread. We got the marquee game of the week, Chiefs and Bills. Of course, Saints take on the Rams. We also just found out a little bit under an hour ago that the Commanders definitely will have Jaden Daniels back this week. The official Twitter account made the announcement. Also, you can download the SportsGrid app. It's available for iOS and Android. Take out your phone, scan that QR code right there that's on your screen, and it'll help you out with all of your bets this weekend by tracking them. So those of you who are betting on college and pro football, even if you have YouTube TV and you can't watch the games, you can still track them via the SportsGrid app, available for iOS and Android. We'll be back with a whole lot more here on Newswire right after this. Don't go away.
There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
This is a bad moment for women's sports because there was a lot riding on this. It's a great idea. Toyota had been signed up as a sponsor for what was going to be last night's coverage, and SI is really in a bad pickle. They have got to come clean and find out why, after 7 months of trying to put this together, they couldn't get the job done, and when they're going to have these games rescheduled.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's a university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
The marquee game of the NFL weekend is the one that we all have our eye on. So let's bring in Mike Blewett. He's back with us for another 10 or 15 minutes or so to break some of the games down. We'll start with this biggie. It's the Chiefs and Bills, and it is a regular season game, but it's going to feel like a playoff game. The Chiefs, they played better than the Bills over the last month, and Mike, this line does make sense to me. They got to make them favorite. -1.5, total of 52.5. I know the Bills will be offended by this. Certainly they won't like the fact that they're dogs going into the game. But Buffalo's impressive wins, when were they? Back in September? I mean, yeah, they won big when they came off the bye last week, and was it Carolina or Tennessee that they crushed? One of those 2 teams. Carolina. I can't remember. It was one. Carolina, one of those two teams. Consolation prize, I guess, to maybe an AFC Championship preview again, potentially.
Yeah, I think so. These teams are certainly in the mix, and you're right. The Chiefs have played better over the course of the last month than the Bills have. 40-9 over the Panthers is a great way to come off the bye, but it's a much different offense that they'll be seeing here. It's not Andy Dalton that's behind under center. What I think is going to be scary for a lot of teams is Rashee Rice's return is more impactful than I think even your most optimistic Chiefs fan was thinking it might be. He's come on and really helped to transform the offense. I still think they want to more consistently move the ball by running it. I don't think they want it to be a Mahomes scramble. I think Pacheco needs to be more effective, and perhaps Brashard Smith becomes a counterpunch to Pacheco if and when he's healthy again. But for now, Kelsey looked better than he's looked all year. Rashee Rice is scoring touchdowns each week that he's been back. So that's really the problem for the Bills. Now, there's a narrative out there that the Bills just can't win. They can't beat the Chiefs. Now, it's true. In the playoffs, they haven't been able to do that. But their regular season success, Craig, has been the opposite. They have been beating the Chiefs during these regular season games. They just come back and get bit when it comes to January or even early February. So for now, I have to stick with the team that's playing a little bit better. And the team I think has the weakest unit of the four is the Bills defense. They have to shore it up. They're not going to stop good teams. And when the Patriots played really good offense, the Bills couldn't stop them. They picked up key first downs and they outscored them in that game. I expect a little bit more of the same. It will not surprise me if the Bills win this game, but I'm going to have to go with the Chiefs here. I think their offense is humming right now, and the Bills are going to struggle.
Rams are playing great football. Saints have turned their signal calling over to Tyler Shuck. Mike, let's give the Saints some credit. They made it halfway through the season being mildly competitive, but let's just call it what it is. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL moving forward, and this could be an absolute debacle for them. 43.5 is the total. I really do think that at some point the Saints will win again, but it's not going to be on the road. I'm telling you that right now. And from what I saw from Shuck last week, this is signaling toward, hey, let's give you the wink, wink, nod, nod. We're really trying, but maybe not. So I hate laying this amount in the NFL, but I don't give the Saints any chance to win this.
I'm with you. And if you feel uncomfortable, it's why you and I talk at this time every week. There are different ways to play it. Would you lay 7.5 in the first half? You think the Rams can get out to a 14-3 lead or even 17-7 kind of lead? I think that's possible, and I'm willing to do that. Rams minus 7.5 in the first half. Exact same numbers in terms of totals that we talked about with the Lions. 29.5 team total for the game, 14.5 in the first half. I think you see the Rams get off to a good start here, but I'd prefer to lay the 7.5 in the first half than the 14.5 for the game. Now, the Saints total for the game is something to look at as well. They have not been a team that's been scoring a lot of points.
No.
I say this every week. You have to be comfortable betting unders in these scenarios. It's 13.5. It's the lowest I've seen for any team at any point.
Wow.
So Tyler Shuck not getting any respect in the market. It's anticipated that they will not score 14 points. It's being bet to the over right now. So if it were me and I really wanted to bet the Saints under, I would probably actually buy the point here. I don't often recommend that, but I think betting them under 14.5 is a lot more comfortable than under 13.5.
All right, let's get to big game Sunday night, especially for Washington. You know, Mike, I mean, who would have thought going into the season that the Commanders would be a 3-point dog to anybody in a primetime game based on the way that they played last year? But that's just the scenario that has Washington. They've been banged up on offense all season long, whether it's been McLaurin or Daniels or Debo, and their running game has now been stagnant. Seattle has been the better team, but what kind of spot is this going into Sunday night with the Seahawks being 3-point favorites? I got to tell you, I'm a little surprised with this line. Total of 47.5. This is a very desperate Washington team that I think if they lose this, they're going to be on the outside looking in that playoff chase. Can they pull this one off, or is Seattle just better than them?
McLaurin out again, too, like you said, banged up, and McLaurin being out again is rough. He just gets the extension, and he's been hurt most of the year. Seattle's been a far better team this year. I was not bullish on Washington going into this season. I thought they had some, turnover and schedule luck last year that was not going to carry over. But again, I didn't expect them to be where they are right now at 3-5. I think this is a huge, not last stand kind of game, but it's going to feel that way. If they go to 3-6, they're going to be in big trouble in the NFC. And you and I could rattle off 6 teams right now that feel like absolute lock playoff teams, and Seattle is one of them. I think Seattle's the better team, and I'm going against what would normally be a gut call for me. But a Sunday night home dog here, catching 3 points, I think is a key number. If it were 2.5, I might go the other way. But I'm going to say Washington gets the big win here. They need to make Sam Darnold uncomfortable, and they're going to have to do it with defense. Washington will win a lower scoring game. So if it's an under, that's a Washington win. I don't see this going over and letting Sam Darnold do a lot for that to win. So it might be counterintuitive, but Jaden Daniels wins a lower scoring one here.
Blewett eating 1.5 pieces of candy on Halloween tonight. That's your candy total tonight. Over, under.
Off the board, buddy. We've already reached that. It's
we've already hit it. 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Wow.
They got to go win and execute, and they can't be inconsistent. And that's the thing. It's like Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, really consistent. And then who is that fourth question mark? And there's been inconsistencies throughout. Hey, Michigan goes out to the West Coast and gets manhandled, and then they come back and then they win. Like, who's the consistent one that is the fourth?
The Bobby Carpenter Show, only on SportsGrid.
Listen, never understood a word he said, but it doesn't matter because he was able to walk into living rooms and get kids to sign. It's a little different situation with the NIL now, but the reality is he represents Louisiana. He is Mr. Louisiana. What better? You should have never fired him to begin with in this spot. So, yeah, I hope they do reconsider and bring him back.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
There's a far longer track record of the Chiefs laying huge numbers and not covering them with Mahomes than anything on the contrary.
And they did that a lot last year where they didn't cover those numbers, but a lot of the time last year they didn't have Rice and they weren't fully healthy, and now they are fully healthy. And now we have an offense that has 4 viable receivers, 2 tight ends, and 2 running backs.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
24 points, and 23 rebounds. Folks, let me tell you something. That's 23 rebounds versus Tennessee. Not Tennessee Tech, not Tennessee Chattanooga, not East Tennessee, West Tennessee, South Tennessee. I don't know how many Tennessees they got in that state. That's the university. He did it against Rick Barnes' kids.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
As we welcome you back to NewsWire, top story of the day in the National Football League, Chris Grier, the general manager of the Dolphins for more than 20 years, has been fired after the Dolphins got blown out by the Baltimore Ravens. Looks like they'll be searching for someone new to run the organization next year. ESPN did report as well that Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, will remain their coach the rest of the season. Of course, today is Halloween. I know we haven't made many references to Halloween here on the show, but I will be out running around with my son collecting candy and doing all that good stuff tonight. We'll get into that a little bit with a LeBron James story, also some fun back and forth with the Pitino family, and Dave Roberts made a clear decision that had nothing to do with the World Series that he will regret. It's time now for some last licks. Okay, so LeBron James is a man of many, many talents, and apparently books is the next one. LeBron James, one of the greatest players in the NBA, most people have him either number 1 or number 2, announced his new children's book, Happy Spooky Halloween, yesterday. It's a 32-page picture book. It's about teamwork and Halloween thrills. It's set to release on HarperCollins. Halloween is the Los Angeles Lakers star's favorite holiday, he says. He's often dressed up in costume. He called it a bucket list item to launch a book about the day. So congrats to LeBron James. By the way, LeBron has not played in the NBA this season. He's been sitting out with sciatica. We'll see when LeBron gets back on the court. But look, we've seen athletes do this before. We've seen Derek Jeter. We've seen Tom Brady write books, become authors too. So really cool deal. Steph Curry, I think, if I'm not mistaken, by LeBron. You can catch that book, I'm sure, on Amazon without even guessing. Okay, now this is a story that I know that a lot of you probably can relate to, which is probably your parents, just like mine. A lot of them have a hard time with this new technology. Look, I mean, like, streaming is a nightmare for some people. Can't figure out how to watch games, where they are, how they are. I get it. I go through it all the time. Well, a funny back and forth yesterday on Twitter, now known as X, social media, with Rick Pitino and his son Richard Pitino. Richard goes on social media yesterday to talk about how to use Amazon Prime. I don't know why he chose to do this, kind of funny. Said, just spent 30 minutes trying to explain to my dad, real Pitino, how to download Amazon Prime on his iPad. Confidence is sky high that Xavier will get the sweep this year. Wow, shots fired by son. But that's not where it stopped. It kept going, and this was the biggest surprise. Rick Pitino, St. John's head coach, goes online on Twitter and says, you forgot to mention that you couldn't remember your password for 20 minutes and we had to use your wife's login. Ouch. This is great stuff for social media, seeing this go back and forth. Of course, St. John's, everybody has the eye on them. A lot of people think there's a shot for them to win the national championship. I know our director Luke hopes that this year, but yeah, I mean, the Pitino father and son going at it. Does he really? He's going to go to every St. John's. Okay, so how many games are at the Garden? 10, 12. Okay, all right. See, this is where Frank, the producer, embellishes, and the director Luke just keeps it real and is like, it's only a handful of games, you know. So it's 12 games you could do. 12 games is easily doable. It's 1 game a week in the Garden if you average it out over 5 months. Come on, not a huge deal. Okay, yesterday in Toronto, Dave Roberts was challenged by one of his players to run around the bases, and it didn't go particularly well. By the way, Dave Roberts, as you may remember, was a very fast player in Major League Baseball before he was a manager. In fact, he had, if you remember, the steal in 2004. I know that was a really long time ago. Dave Roberts isn't 30 anymore, but he raced one of his players around the bases. He even, as a matter of fact, was given a little bit of a head start. And as they ran around, as you could see there in that little picture, Roberts just did an absolute face plant rounding second base. He was able to make fun of himself, saying something popped up out of the ground, and that's when he hit the ground there. So Dave Roberts still in good spirits, despite being down 1 game in the World Series and falling on his face. Hope for better results for them tonight. That will do it for our show today and our week of shows today. Thanks to Bill Bender of Sporting News, Sam McQuillan of Legal Sports Report, John Lafayette, and of course Mike Blewett, who you can catch this weekend coming up on In Game Live. He's got you covered for all of the NFL games on Sunday. Fantasy football should be on the brain for a lot of you too. Another big week. You can catch me and George Kurtz every single Friday here on SportsGrid at 3 o'clock Eastern and also on the weekends. And don't forget, Joe Pisapia and Matt Stryker have you covered on Sunday morning, leading you right up until In Game Live. Thanks again to our director Luke, for my producer Frank. Enjoy your Halloween night. Hope you get a lot of candy. Keep it safe out there. And we'll see you back Monday for our next edition of NewsWire. See you then.